Welcome to the channel. Redditors who have slept with your friend's parents. How did that happen? What was it like with a parent/friend afterwards? Did your friend ever find out? I have a friend whose mom was always really nice and bubbly. We'll call her Jane. I've known Jane since I was 13. I was friends with her son in junior high, but that's about it. We'll call him Sam. Well, as Sam and I grew apart, my mom remained very good friends with Jane, so I would still see her quite often. Jane had a few boyfriends through the span that I've known her, but never for more than a few months, and never any plans for engagement or anything. So, as I grew older, Jane became nicer and touchier-feely. I, however, always wrote this off as my imagination. On top of this, Jane would often comment about how I was growing up to be such a tall, handsome young man, and would compliment my muscles or let me know she liked my new haircut. Basically, I noticed Jane was paying a lot more attention to me than seemed normal. When I was 19, almost 20, I was working for a job that didn't have many hours to offer. Jane, being a single lady whose only son, Sam, left for college, insisted that I could do yard work and such around her house, and she would pay me for it. I wasn't opposed to this, seeing as I needed money. Well, one day, Jane needed her carpet pulled up because she was getting wood floors. So, who would be better to do the job than yours truly? I remember the couch was pushed onto the tile right next to the kitchen, and after about 30 minutes of straight work, I was tired and decided to sit down on the couch. Jane had come home from work about 30 minutes earlier. I took a shower and came out wearing just shorts and a sports bra. Now, keep in mind, Jane is an attractive, dark-skinned, early middle-aged woman who is in good shape. I've always thought Jane to be attractive in a very traditional sense. On top of this, Jane has glorious breasts. So, she comes out and says that she would help me get the job done. She went on to joke about how sexy I looked as a blue-collar man, and how she loved a man who was capable of hard work and wasn't afraid to work up a sweat. She joked like this for just a minute, then playfully sat on my lap while I was on the couch. This wasn't completely shocking to me, as I've known her for a while and she was always a flirtatious woman. While she was on my lap, I couldn't help but quickly look at her cleavage that was pressed against me. She noticed this and giggled and playfully scolded me, but went on to say that she didn't mind. This is where things got real. She then straddled me and pressed her breasts together right near my face and said, "I'm used to the attention," and asked me if I would like to feel them. This caught me off guard, so I said no, even though I really wanted to. She wouldn't take no for an answer, so I did. I lightly touched her breast with one hand and then pulled back. She then said, "Oh, come on. Really feel them." Jane took both my hands and pressed them against her chest while she rhythmically massaged my hands against them. I was staring at her breasts, but I could feel her staring at me. While she did that, she began to stir her hips and I could hear her breathing pick up a little. Then she pulled up her sports bra, exposing her breasts, and began full-on dry humping me. I was crazy turned on and began sucking on her breasts. I won't go into more detail, but this quickly turned into me banging with Jane. I continued for a while to go to Jane's house to do work, and we banged a few more times after that. We never discussed it, but it was obvious we would not tell anyone of this, especially Sam or my mom. After a while, I got a better job, and Jane became involved with another man. It's as if nothing ever happened, which I honestly prefer. I still see her fairly often, but she's a very cool person, and nothing ever seems awkward or anything of that sort. Overall, it was an awesome experience. So, there are so many people on Earth that this is bound to happen to at least one person, right? So, until proven otherwise, I'm going to choose to believe op on this one. It's a spice you want to start out with, folks. Story 2. His parents had just broken up, but for some reason she stayed temporarily while her new boyfriend got an apartment. Saturday night bonfire. Drank too much, stayed up late, 2 a.m., smoking alone, and she came out. Nothing weird because she's a smoker and a night owl. Stood next to me before asking to sit on my lap. I made eye contact with her and she just started making out with me. Ended up banging her in my friend's bed while he slept on the couch. I vowed to never speak of it again. Story 3. I was about 19 at the time and I was training to go into the military, so I would constantly go running in preparation for basic. A few of my friends who were also in the program wanted to join me, so we would frequently meet up during the week to go, and quickly became good friends as a result. I met Tiffany at her house one day to help her move some things out of her house because her ship date was getting closer and no one else would help her. That's when I met her, Tiffany's mom. When I first met her, I could feel instant attraction towards her, not only because of her looks, But because of her personality, she was getting a stripper pole installed in her house for exercise purposes. So, being 19 at the time and my teenage body vigorously coursing with testosterone, I thought that was the hottest thing ever. The more I was over there, the more I noticed that my constant stares were being returned by her mom. This continued on for a few weeks with occasional flirting and subtle advances until my friend's ship date arrived. In order for me to move on to the next part of the story, I have to explain how the whole process of leaving for the military works. So, the night before your ship date, they put you in the nearest hotel, closest to Empson. The day after, you process, swear in, and ship out. Her mother wanted to get a room in the same hotel so she could be there for her in the morning, and she invited me to come along with her. Of course, I accepted her invitation. We all hung out in Tiffany's mom's room until Tiffany's curfew came and forced her to go and left us alone. We bought alcohol. Well, she bought us alcohol, and after a few drinks and some not-so-subtle advances, we banged. It was the best banging I've ever had to date. After that night, we hooked up a few more times, but it ended soon after. I don't think Tiffany ever found out, but I'm not sure. I'm 23 now and haven't really talked to her since. Whoa. I thought the whole stereotype about the military was that you leave and then your partner bangs someone else, not your mom. Opie, I think you messed something up here. Story 4. I banged my best friend's mom for about a year. Her husband was cool with it and a bit jealous. She was doing an 18-year-old, and he wasn't. I'm going to be a bit guarded with the details, but she ran a business that involved traveling around parts of the country, and I was employed by her. Because I was out of school and an employee, her son never put two and two together. I would travel with her and stay in hotels with her. So, it was the perfect cover. I don't really know how it started, but she and I hit it off. She asked me once if I wanted a BJ or to be made love to. She's the only woman that has ever successfully sucked me off to completion. It was frickin' wonderful. Most awkward moment was definitely when she said, "That's where Johnny came from," as I stuck it in her. Little narrator sidebar here. Bro? What? Why would you say anyway? 20 years now? You know that saying about older women really knowing what they're doing? Totally. Frickin' true. Story 5. Whoa, a lot of dudes in here banging their friends' moms. I guess I'll contribute in the name of gender parity or whatever. I banged a friend's father. I went to a pretty elite boarding school. I wasn't rich, but they reserved some spots for local students. I think they might get tax breaks for it, or they're currying favor with the townies. I was bright enough and my parents made decent enough dough that after the scholarship they offered, our family could afford to go as a student. A lot of the students are kind of privileged. They're rich types. One kid would get dropped off in a helicopter at the beginning of term. They're very 1% why. I made friends with one girl. She came from old money, but she was a bit shy and awkward and unsure of herself. She didn't make a lot of friends her first year at school, and so we were pretty close. The summer between then and college, she was getting really anxious about starting over again in college, and losing the friends she had finally made in high school, and so she begged me to come spend the summer with her in Europe. Her parents, divorced, had properties in Europe. Her dad had a villa in Spain, and her mom had some flats and apartments somewhere else. She had grandparents in Switzerland or something, too. She bounces around there in the summer. I couldn't really afford to go. I was saving for college, but she's a huge daddy's girl and gets whatever she wants. So, she eventually got him to buy me a plane ticket. I'd never been and had been surrounded for the past 3 years by students who were all well-traveled and figured, hey, it'll be my one opportunity. So I went, joined up with her in Spain. It was just us for a little while. We had a great time. We drank by their pool. We toured some of the nearby cities, drank a lot, partied a lot. Her dad arrived during my last 2 weeks visiting her. Never met her dad before then. I think he was early 40s. He looked pretty young. He was sending out the vibes that he was interested, and I was flattered. He had a handsome, distinguished kind of look, and I've always been a sucker for that. I had mad teacher crushes. Now I have mad professor crushes. He was very free with his compliments, and I liked the way he looked at me. It made me feel very powerful and sexy. We were out on a friend of their boat for an afternoon. We were drinking and having a great time. I was wearing a very, very small bathing suit. We were all in the water having a great time, probably 7 or 8 of us, and having a water fight. He kept trying to dunk me. He would have his arms around me, and I would shimmy and shake and squirm, and he was hard as a rock. When we got back to their place that afternoon, my pal decided to have a nap. She was worn out from the sun and the wine. I decided to take matters into my own hands. Fortified with some liquor, I changed into my fanciest bra and panties and strolled into his room and asked him if he wanted me. He said yes. He was fantastic in bed, and we continued to bang on and off the next few weeks. He was very sweet. We ended up canceling my flight home and spent a week with him in Paris instead. I never told my friend. She thinks I still went home right after Spain. I saw him a few times in college when he came to my university city if I was single. He would take me out to dinner, and we would bang in luxury hotels. It was all very swanky for someone who was scraping up enough money for my college's meal plan. Once, he flew me out to see him in the city he spends most of the year in. It was a weird arrangement, and I think people would be pretty judgmental of it, but ultimately, it worked for us. Never told his daughter. She's kind of an oblivious sort, so the likelihood she would figure it out is slim. Haven't seen him in 8 months because I needed to get serious about my school, and he was getting serious with another, more age-appropriate woman. Hey, some people may judge it, for sure, but at the end of the day, it was consensual. Casual. Seems like you were both having a lot of fun, so I can't really knock it. Good for you. Story 6. I was high and had been drinking, and she pretty much took advantage of me. Fast forward a few months, and I'm drunk on my friend's sofa. Everyone is in bed, and my friend's mom comes into the room and starts trying to kiss me. I'm pretending to be asleep when my friend comes in and goes crazy. Stuff starts to get thrown around, and I leave pretty quickly and call a taxi. That person still hates me to this day. I figured it was easier for me to be the jerk than for things to get even more complicated for my friend and their mom by me being honest. Story 7. My friend's mom was in an open relationship with her husband. They were always the cool parents. They were the parents who let us drink at their house when we were all 17. They taught us the do's and don'ts of getting drunk. They were basically our party mentors. Anyway, my friend's mom had always told me how cute she thought I was, and would joke about how she couldn't wait until I turned 18. I would flirt back occasionally, and one night we did some hand stuff while my friend was sitting 3 feet away. She never found that out. So, the day before my senior year in high school, I decided I didn't want to be a virgin anymore. I text her and ask if she wants to hang out. She says, sure, and picks me up in the family minivan. We drive out a little way, we put the seats down in the back, smoked a bowl, listened to Kid Cudi, and then banged. I got the best head I've ever had to this date, and there was no awkwardness after. We even hooked up a couple more times. My friend had always told me, if anything happens between you and my mom, just please don't tell me. Which I totally understood. I wouldn't want to hear about any of my friends banging my mom either. So, 2 years later though, she finds out about it and luckily hasn't affected our friendship whatsoever. We still joke about it to this day. I want to know what those jokes are like. Like, how are you joking about this? You're sitting in the living room split-screening some shooter or something. There's some crap talk going on. Yeah, I banged your mom. And she just has to be like, yeah, you did. Story 8. Mom and daughter. When I was 18, I hung around this cute girl that was new at school for our last year. I would give her rides to and from school because she knew me from a mutual friend before she transferred to my school. I always had a crush on her, but she was pretty far out of my league. It was a friend zone kind of thing, but I didn't care. Anyway, we were pretty inseparable for a period of time. I would hang out on her front porch and her mom would always come out and talk with us. She was really, really attractive. Long, blonde hair, slender, and had that sexy, raspy voice. I would always joke with her mom in the room about her mom being hot. And she was recently divorced, so I think she liked the self-esteem boost. Probably a year after we stopped hanging out so frequently, I asked the girl if she wanted to go to my friend's party that he was having in the middle of a cornfield. She agreed to go with me, and we got a chance to catch up on the way over. I must have been abnormally funny or charming that night because she was laughing at every dumb joke, and really flirting with me the whole way over. While we were on a dark country road, she leaned over and kissed me, while simultaneously rubbing her hand on my crotch. It caught me off guard, as I didn't know she was even into me like that. I pulled over off the side of the road, shut off my car, and made out with her slash poked around downstairs. She told me that she wanted to hold off on going further, but we still made out and groped each other throughout the night. Nothing really ever came of it after that, but we still remained good friends. Fast forward another year and my buddy and I end up at her mom's house because he now had a fling with this girl. She had a couple friends over, guys and girls, but then later on in the night, her mom was dropped off from the bar. This was the first time I had seen her mom since I used to come over back in school, and she immediately remembered me and was more than happy to see me. We all swam in their pool and drank some more. Her mom jokingly kissed me on a dare in front of her, and the girl freaked out and pulled her off me. So, after that, her mom kept her distance from me for the rest of the night, because I think she may have known that she was crossing a line with her daughter. Later on, everyone passed out and my friend went to bed with this girl. I went out on the deck to smoke a cigarette before passing out, and about 2 minutes later, her mom followed me out. Without saying a word to me, she straddled my thigh. She was wearing a sundress and I could feel that she wasn't wearing any underwear as she straddled my leg. Let's say she was ready to go. She pushed my head into her breast and began grinding my thigh. Basically, after that, I did her mom from behind over the balcony and again in her bed. Her daughter doesn't know about it at all, to my knowledge, unless my friend told her. Didn't happen again after that, but I never really found myself in that position again either. Maybe I'm just a prude, but I can't imagine the gall of having someone's mom in the room and being like, "Yo, dude, your mom is hot." Surely, you knew what you were doing? I guess they did. But still, I can't imagine that level of boldness. As the friend, I would be like, "Please stop." Story 9. Me and a few of my friends went to hang out and drink at this girl's house. Her mom would always chill with us there too. We were just chilling on the deck and her mom kept staring at me with these frisky eyes. So I went up to her and asked if she wanted to go upstairs and do a couple lines of drugs with me. We went upstairs, did the drugs, and banged. Then, a few months later, I ended up banging the daughter, too. The best part is, they're related to one of my best friends. So, after I banged the daughter, I called him and told him I was working my way through his family and asked for his sister's number. He hung up on me. Me and him are still pretty close. I still haven't seen the mom or daughter in a while. Story 10. When I was younger and the MySpace days were in mid-swing, this gal, we'll call her Jane, in the scene my band played in, friended me and started messaging me. She was tall, tattooed, and hot. And I found out was lying about her age on MySpace, saying she was 18 when she was only 16. You wouldn't have thought it though, because she had these gigantic breasts and was covered in tattoos. We kept being friends, and when she turned 18, she started sending me pictures. And although I had moved out of state, we kept pretty close online, and she felt that I was someone she could talk to about all her life problems. Fast forward to her being 21. She's using her mom's status as a flight attendant to get me buddy passes and standby tickets so I could come visit her about once a month and bang her brains out. MySpace turns into Facebook and I get a request from a random hot rocker chick. We have one mutual friend, and that's Jane. I creep a few pictures and it's always her and Jane at shows drinking. I find out it's her mom. Now, Jane had a few pictures of me framed in her house. No couple pics, but pics from me at shows being ridiculous. Jane's mom messages me saying how she always thought I was hot, and she was going to be in my town that weekend and had a spare ticket to a show. Would I like to join her? So I say yes. We drink, we party, we head back to her room doing shots of tequila and drugs all night in between massive, filthy banging sessions. The only thing was, we could never tell Jane. Well, Jane kept using her mom to fly me up to see her, and I kept going because she was an incredible lay. I saw where she got it from. Her mom would have overnights in my town, and it was always drugs and tequilas and banging. This went on for a couple of years. Both would send me dirty pics when they were out shopping, and I would just laugh at the situation but kept it up. One time, Jane was going through her mom's pics and found a video of her blowing me, and then me jacking on her face. That was an entire night of screaming and weeping phone calls. Flash to 7 years later and change, and Jane's mom has nothing to do with me. Jane and I patched it up and I helped her through a few things. Even worked her stuff out with her boyfriend, now husband, but other things came up between us that keep us from being friends. Most notably her husband, but damn, could those women bang and suck. Now, look, I understand the fantasy and everything, but the whole child development psychology part of my brain going crazy right now, this mom was not a good influence. The daughter was absolutely destined to become just like her or a nun. And we all know it wasn't the nun. Story 11. When I was 17 years old, I started sleeping with my, at the time, recent ex-girlfriend's mom. It all started one day when we were hanging out at her house, and she asked if I wanted to ride over to her mother's house to feed her dogs, seeing as she was out of town. Mother being my ex-girlfriend's grandmother. I agreed, so I got in the driver's seat of the Suburban and started heading toward her mother's. While on the way, everything seemed normal until she put her hand on my leg. I was caught a little off guard. but we were close, so I didn't think much of it. We continue down the road in a void of silence when she slides her hand up to my belt and starts unbuckling it and unbuttoning my pants. Next thing I know, she's out of her seat and on her knees on the floorboard delivering a pretty fantastic BJ. We get to her mom's and she grabs me and pulls me into her mom's room and pushes me on the bed. At this point, I'm freaked out. I'm 17, and this is a lot to take in. Anyway, she goes back with more fellatio, this time taking my pants off as she goes. After a few minutes, she took off her pants and crawled up to where she was straddling. As I lay there, I am being flooded with emotions of excitement, horror, guilt, and pleasure. I protest briefly, but by the time I had a chance to put a sentence together, she had already taken me inside of her. We finished up, admittedly, not too long after it began, fed the dogs, went back to her house where I smoked a bowl with her daughter. We didn't talk about it for a week, but it turned into a semi-regular thing for us for about a year and a half. Eventually, I cut it off, because I found a girl that I cared for. She lost her crap on me, and we haven't really talked since. Story 12. When I was 18, but still in high school, I had a trio with a married couple I met online. My first trio. We had good fun, so I came back over soon for more of it. After the frisky times had ensued, I glanced up at their living room wall and saw school pictures of a girl I knew. Not exactly friends, but acquaintances, and I've been in the school system with her since middle school. Dawning. Realization of horror. It, however, did not stop me from hooking up with them more. It did eventually come up in conversation that I knew their daughter, and they weren't too thrown off by it. The mother ran into me at our high school graduation and congratulated me. High school was weird times. This thread was filled with way spicier stories than I expected. And also, no joke answers. I guess we only made it 12 stories in because they were long, but still, I'm impressed. Read it. And only some of them sounded like self-insert fanfiction. There are a couple in here that I'm pretty sure were true. I hope you have a wonderful day or night, wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, everyone.